Hi, I'm Hazel. It is almost Saturday today, which makes it time to sit down and catch up with a brand new vlog, and this week we got a brand new Twitch Q&A as well as a Forbes interview from our favorite Papa Ian. I read the interview. I didn't actually watch the Twitch stream this time, but I did catch up on the notes after the fact, and a lot of it seemed to focus on Azerite traits and what is not working with those and where they want to go with it in 8.1. And a couple of statements were made, and maybe some of this is because of the paraphrasing that happens when you boil these things down into bullet points, but a couple of statements that were made that felt kind of contradictory, and at least one which felt a little inflammatory, but we'll get to that. So the contradiction that jumped out is in the Forbes interview. He said, "I think there is value in a sense of mystery and discovery," specifically talking about the re-origination array Old Deer Azerite traits. And then in the Q&A, he was talking about how you should not have to go and research what your Azerite traits do. That information should be in the tooltip for you to make a decision without having to use third-party resources, something along those lines. You can't have that one both ways. Mystery and discovery is great, but this may not be the place for it. Mysteries are working great in the secret finding community because they are made so difficult that you require the use of massive amounts of people to solve them, so it becomes a community effort that takes into account the fact that people will confer on Discord, and because those rewards are typically completely cosmetic, nobody has to go and do the Lucid Nightmare puzzle in order to raid. With an Azerite trait, it's specifically affecting your combat throughput and raiding potential, which means it gets lumped into the realm of Icy Veins guides and Discord theory crafting and things that you do look up if you're serious about raiding. So the way it works out is like 3 to 5 people figure it out, they put it online, and then we all go and research it, which is the thing that you said you were trying to get away from. So that came off as a little bit odd, but it is kind of fascinating how game design requirements can kind of evolve over time, completely not related to the game, but related to the communities that form around the game. They can't make the same thing that they did 10 years ago, not that they would, but they can't, because the community receives and turns over and disseminates information in a much, much different way. Like, the landscape's totally different, which is just kind of cool to think about. And then for the inflammatory remark, this one was a bullet point from the interview, so maybe it was said in a more tactful way. But the bullet point read, there is value to having a bit of friction when it comes to changing specs. Now, that might be true. That might be flat out true, but that does not make a good bullet point. So first of all, he does seem to say there is value in thing quite a lot, which is fine. You know, people have their own phrases that they get used to using and you tend to say the same things, but that one in particular doesn't boil down very well into bullet points, because when you take it out of the context where he explains what the value is in the next sentence, the bullet point isn't looking at the value, the bullet point is looking at the friction. We don't even know what the value is from that takeaway. As he went on to explain, the value in having friction to switching specs is that the person that went out and set out to set up and gear their character as a healer is effectively better than somebody who has been DPSing this whole time that just decided to switch specs mid-raid. That might be true, but I personally feel that trinkets have fulfilled that role for a long time perfectly fine, and I don't think that you need to have Azerite doubling down on that role. Like, if you're going to set up a healer spec, you are going to at the very least need trinkets, and now you need 2 trinkets and 3 pieces of Azerite gear that, of course, you know, getting Azerite gear has its own problems, but you need 5 extra pieces of loot, and that's only if you're not even worrying about optimizing your secondaries and your enchants. So the barrier to entry is fine to have, but I personally think it's too high right now, and it just results in me not switching because I don't want to, but that's just me and my tolerance level. I'm very lazy these days, so I may not be a good case study. Something else that came out of the Q&A in regards to the new 8.1 raid, which they are now calling Battle of Dazara Lore. That might actually teach me how to remember that it's called Dazara Lore. No promises. So the interesting thing was that they said that there will be mechanical differences in the boss fights depending on which faction you are. And that's weird. Like, that's new and weird and kind of awkward. So the main point of awkwardness that they touched on in the interview is that what does that mean for the world first race? As far as I understand, the answer was basically, I don't know, that's your guys' problem, you figure it out. Hilarious. I'm personally kind of hoping that there are fairly minor differences so that you don't have to go ahead and look up a Horde raid guide or an Alliance raid guide. My impression is that it's one of those wacky things they're going to try once because it makes sense in the theme for this patch, and then we can all move on and pretend it didn't happen if it doesn't go well. With BlizzCon getting closer, the Blizzard Gear shop items that are BlizzCon exclusive were revealed for pre-sale for virtual ticket holders and ticket holders that get the virtual ticket. That was a massacre of a sentence. And I'm actually a little underwhelmed with the WoW stuff. Like, there's some cool stuff for the other franchises, but with the WoW thing, maybe it's just not to my taste. They have like these Anduin and Sylvanas hoodies that are like $85. And for that amount of money, I would kind of want it to be more wearable or more ornate. It's kind of like this weird midway ground where it doesn't really look like a costume, but it also doesn't really look like something you're gonna go out and wear. Maybe that's just me. They also had this hooded Jaina themed shawl that isn't really doing anything for me. The pictures aren't doing it any favors. I think they kind of just make it look like a big piece of felt. And at this point in my life, I am kind of over things that are supposed to keep you warm that require constant clutching in order to stay on properly. Nobody's got hands for that. The blackout stuff is nice. I am starting to wonder at what point is too many WoW t-shirts too many WoW t-shirts. I guess I'll find out one day. I'm heading that way. But yeah, between the gear store stuff feeling kind of underwhelming, at least to me personally, and then the virtual ticket rewards not including a mount or a pet, and the fact that it's not an expansion launch year, so we can't expect an expansion announcement or anything super exciting. You know, we're going to get some 8.1 patch stuff, which we've been getting in interviews already. Kind of feels like an off-year BlizzCon. I wonder if I picked the wrong one to go to first. In my week in WoW, we killed Heroic Gahoon this week, so we're officially finished our progress. We are 8 of 8 Heroic. We're not going into Mythic. We never have. We don't want to have to do the thing where you bench people or pug people to get to an even 20. The nice thing about Heroic rating is that everybody gets to go, so we're probably going to farm it for a few weeks, hopefully get it down to a one-night clear before November, because otherwise I might have to miss a raid night on the Thursday that I'm away. I don't really miss raid nights. I think I might have missed one since Warlords. Maybe not. I don't go anywhere. Speaking of Azerite trades, in Uldir this week, I got my first piece of Uldir Azerite gear, so I now have my re-origination array right as we finish progression. It's pretty good. It helps a lot. Would have been great to have earlier. I guess I have it now. Man, I've just kind of written off the whole Azerite system like completely in my heart, and I don't know what they would have to do to make me care about it again. I think I've just given up. I think I'm just waiting for it to be over. Questions for this week. F4U asks, why is there a purple hamster dance party behind your couch? So in last week's vlog, I had a little bit of an issue with either my light or my camera or both. I have sorted it out now. As many of you suggested, I needed to adjust my shutter speed, so hopefully it looks a lot better. The really remarkable thing about that was that through recording, and I have a monitor here, I can see my camera feed, through recording and the whole editing process, and checking back on the finished file before I upload, I did not notice until somebody said something. I don't know how. It was in all 3 of those. I went back and looked. I don't know how I missed that. Flamewing asks, where did you originally get the power weights for the Azerite add-on? Bloodmallet.com. Desmond asks, in your opinion or experience for defeating Vectis, what is the best for smaller guilds or just advice? So I'm going to assume that you've already watched the Vectis raid guide that I did. Aside from that, a couple of things that helped our guild move on from being stuck on it. We had the range fairly close to melee so that when somebody was chosen with the ad wasn't like way out in the back. It also made it easier for us to pick up one of the diseases from melee if like both of them were stuck bouncing around up there and stacking up too high. Making sure that everybody switches and single targets down the ad ASAP. Having it up continually is just too stressful on your healing when everybody's also taking dot damage. And then making sure that the people that currently have the plague are fairly far from each other with a couple of buffer people in between just to make sure that the same person doesn't get 2 stacks at once because that hurts. So that has been my week. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you have any questions that you would like answered on the vlog, please leave them as comments in the most recent vlog. I look forward to seeing some of you on this afternoon's live stream, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!